This is part 3 of our Flickr browser upgrade, adding material design and other cool stuff. Video 4. Let's keep progressing. Okay, so what we need to do is again add that menu option. So just bringing that back up on the screen again. We want to add a search icon here so that when that's clicked, we can open another activity and do a search. So how do we do that? Well, we go to our menu. Because we're adding something to a toolbar, we don't add it into a normal layout. We go into our menu. So menu main is the menu that applies to our main activity. So I'm going to click into that. And I'm just going to double click that so we've got the full screen. I'm just going to go in there somewhere and use this Command Alt L, which I use all the time, which I believe is Control Alt L on a Mac, on a Windows machine I should say. So that's making it a little bit more readable for us. Okay, and I need to add that Flickr command again, exactly the same as before, so I'm just going to copy it from the toolbar and go back to our menu. I'm going to paste it in. Okay, so what we need to do is we've got one in there now. The default option we've got in there now is our settings, and that's, just to be clear, that's this option here. That's the settings, which we won't be using for this app, but that's the default thing that's automatically added every time you create an app. So we want to leave that as it is, and you can see that that's set to show us action equals never. That means it's never, oops, wrong button, it's never going to sort of show here. In other words, it's only going to show there if you specifically click it, basically. So we want to add another one below that, and we're going to say item. We're going to start with an Android ID first. ID equals, we're going to call this menu _ search. And we're going to use icon, Android icon equals Android : drawable. You're probably wondering what this is because we're not accessing a normal menu, normal icon I should say now. And you can see as I'm typing this, well, where is this IC _ menu _ search come from? Well, this is because we've specified Android : we're using the system available icons that are included and available to be used in any app. Now, of course, if we get rid of that Android : we get a red error. The reason we get a red error is because it's now looking in our folder, and if you recall from previous videos, the only one we should have in there is placeholder. Oops. Placeholder like so. And we've got a couple of other default ones, but basically placeholder was the only one we added. So we'll just undo those changes, but because we're specifying ampersand Android : drawable, that actually goes to a menu option that's built into the system. And there's a lot of different icons. And just to show you, Android drawables, there's a website called androiddrawable.com you can go to, a very handy site. And you can have a look at the drawable resources by type, and I'll select menu because that's what this is. And it gives you the lowdown on the various icons and what they look like and what the identifier is in each version. So of course, unsurprisingly, there should be a menu search because that's what we've just added. And there it is there, search. You can see what it looks like on the various versions of Android. And that's the name of it, obviously. It has to be exactly that name, and that's what it's going to look like. So if you see something like this, and there's gaps there, it means it's not supported in that particular version. In this case it is, you just can't see it very well. But other things aren't. And the other thing to keep in mind is some of these are private, so you may not be able to access them. But by and large, a lot of the basic ones are there. And that's how I came about to use IC menu search anyway, by using the standard built-in Android one. Okay, so continuing back on. So it can be quite handy to use those to save you having to download and sort of put them into the right folders and so on and so forth. I'm going to put a title here. Title equals, we're just going to type search. Now something in here you may not have seen before. If you just type something in here and you want to add a string to the strings.xml file, you hold down, so type in the text that you want there to be added, hold down Alt and press return. And it says extract string resource, press enter. And you can see it's automatically going to put it in the values folder in the file called strings.xml. What do you want the name to be referred to? We're going to call it action _ search. And you can see very nicely what it's done is automatically added that in. And if we click on that, I'm holding down Command on the Mac, which I believe is Control on the PC. And you can see it actually added that line for us automatically, which is pretty handy. And just while we're here, I'm going to delete that hello world because we don't need that anymore. Okay, back to our menu. Ordering category, we're going to set that to 1. And the big command that we want here is we want to put Flickr : show us action equals always. We always want to show that icon. There's never a time when we don't want to. Okay, so that should be it. Okay, and Android there should be Flickr because it's in the Flickr Flickr namespace. So just to be clear, all I'm doing here, think of these almost just like as package names. So by specifying Android, that's how I refer to this file when I want to use the appropriate commands. And the reason that Android was coming up with an error is because the show us action isn't actually in that file. The show us action is in this file here, the res-auto. So I need to prefix that with a Flickr so I can find it. Okay, so we should be able to run our app again now, and we should see a search button. And whoops, I deleted that too soon, so I need to go back and go into my fragment main. Actually, what I'll do with my fragment main, we're not going to be using that fragment, so I'm going to take this opportunity to delete that, because we're going to be creating another class to do that. Delete. Safe delete's often a good way just to be 100% sure that it's not referenced anywhere else, and it's going to delete it for us. All right, I'm going to try running it again. I'll just run it on both devices so we can see that it is going to work. And you can see we've now got a button. But of course the button doesn't do anything yet, and that's because of course we haven't programmed it to do anything. So next thing we want to do now is create a new class so that once that search button is clicked, we can create an intent and actually sort of automatically go to that new class and invoke that functionality. So what we need is a search activity. We're going to call it search activity. So I'm going to go into, click on my package under Java, right click new, but I'm not going to select Java class, I'm going to select activity, blank activity. So I'm going to create a new activity. I'm going to call this one not main activity 2, I'm going to call it search activity. And this is a good spot to change these things from the default options. So I'm going to do layout name, I'm just going to call it layout _ search. Title, we'll leave it search activity for now. Menu research, menu _ search is fine. The parent, well, where are we coming from? We're coming from main activity. So I'm going to type in main activity. But make sure you select the right one. It should be our org.example.android.flickr browser. Click on finish. So the cool thing about this is that this has added the layouts, it's created a menu for us, but also it's automatically created in the Android manifest file, the entry for search activity. So it's done a lot of the work for us. So I recommend you using that new blank activity wherever possible. Okay, so let's go to our layout search. Now this is basically the page that's going to come up when the search button is clicked. The search icon is clicked, I should say, and there's not going to be a lot to it. It's going to basically be our toolbar, and the toolbar is going to use a special function of Android for its searching. So I'm going to leave all that as it is. What I need to do is delete that default entry of the hello world because we're not going to be using a text view. In actual fact, what we want to do is include our toolbar. Include Android ID, and remember we have to call it app bar, so that the base activity knows to access it and can find it, and layout equals at layout toolbar. We're importing the toolbar, and that's going to be that. That's all we need to do for this base class, because we're going to add some more functionality to that so it can do a search shortly. So because we're doing the search in the menu, we need to go to our menu search and add the code in there to do that. So I'm going to click on this to make it a bit tidier. It's called it app, but I like calling it Flickr, so I'm just going to change it to Flickr and change that to Flickr. And I'm just going to do my Command-Alt-L just so this is a little bit easier on the eyes. Okay, I don't need a tools reference, I'm going to delete that out. Oops, so we just got those. Okay, at the moment it's got the action settings, which is the built-in sort of button for search. I'm going to leave that one alone because it's ultimately not going to be displayed anywhere. We're going to add our second one. Item Android ID equals plus ID search view. It's going to be where the data can be typed in. We need another icon for this. We're going to type Android icon equals Android, ampersand Android colon drawable. And we're going to use our icon again, menu search. And you'll see why shortly. Android title, search, and I can do a alt return, search menu, like so. Title, order and category. I'm just going to type 1 again. Now, Flickr action view class. Basically, we're sort of saying where is the functionality coming from, and the functionality is the search special widget called a search view. So it's android.support.v7.widget.search And then we want our last thing, which is our Flickr show us action equals always, because we always want that to pop up. Okay, so we've now added that to our menu underscore search.xml. Now, of course, the other thing we need on this search activity is we need a back button or a home button. So in other words, what will happen is on the main class, we will click on the search icon, and it'll go to another page, another screen, I should say. And on that screen, you can do a search. So you need to get back to the home page. So we need like a back button or a home button. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to go back to our base activity and just change the class or add another function effectively. So what I'm going to do is create another function. I'm going to call this one protected toolbar. I'll call it activate toolbar with home enabled. Okay, so I'm going to type activate toolbar. So we want to create our standard toolbar, and we want to do a test here. But if m toolbar not equal to null, get support action bar dot set display home as up enabled true. So in other words, it's going to add that a little icon. It's going to add that arrow for us automatically, so that people can click on that to get back to the previous screen. Then we'll still return M toolbar. So really all it does the standard thing that the activate toolbar does, but it adds that sort of left arrow so we can get back to the previous page. So we now need to go back into search activity. We need to extend from base activity. Then of course we also need to do an activate toolbar with home enabled. Okay, at this point it's a good time to stop the video. We've still got a bit more work to do because we can't run it because we haven't linked search activity. Like we haven't added anywhere where we can actually click on through from main activity to process our search. So we'll do that in the next video.